Hey, almost a year ago, I developed this table saw jig. Now, when I built this, I made it because I needed it for a very specific reason, and that was to cut raised panels for a big piece of furniture I was making. It looked something like this.
Zip, zap, zoop, raised panels in like 2 seconds flat. Super easy.
But after developing this, I quickly realized that this thing could actually be used for a lot of different things. Even in that video, I discovered that not only could it do raised panels, very easily by adding this arm, you could make a jig for doing mortise and tenons, or angled mortise and tenons, angled bridle joints, that sort of thing. I showed the idea to my friend Jonathan Katz-Moses because he's great at developing new tools, and he liked the idea and thought we could add even more to this. So over the course of the last year, we've been going back and forth on different ideas, and we just recently started developing a new version of this sled that I can't wait to get out to you guys. It's available for purchase right now on my website. I'm gonna go down to his shop, see where he's at with the development, and hopefully get this thing dialed in. So, let's go to California.
So I wanted my friend Jason to come.
Okay, so we're down at Jonathan's shop, and now we're gonna see where he's at with the whole jig development.
Yes. Did you run here all the way from Portland?
You should really clean up in here, man. This place is a mess.
Now, on the off chance that you don't know who Jonathan Katz-Moses is, he's the owner of KM Tools. It's a tool company that he started himself when he couldn't find tools designed by woodworkers for woodworkers, and he thought, why don't I just do it myself? He's also the one that helped us develop and distribute the Bourbon blade, which is in stock and available right now on the website. So if you haven't got one of these yet, well, maybe you should pick one of those up over at bourbonmoth.com. Just saying. When I got down to California, Jonathan had already taken my initial design and tweaked it a little bit. But there were still a few things to figure out. The T-track wasn't exactly up to snuff how I liked it. He did redesign the entire fence sliding mechanism to fit on anyone's table saw, but we still were trying to figure out an easier way to ensure the jig was perfectly square. So with a long list of things that still needed to be figured out, we put our heads together and got to work.
But let's make some changes, make it smaller, and come back and put together another prototype.
Cool. Yes. It's looking pretty sweet, man. I think we were almost there. I'm loving the way it's come together. Love the double curves here where you can really dial in the angle on the fence. Really love the redesign on the back with these supports to make sure that it's perfectly square. And these act as the handle now, so we eliminated that front handle.
Yeah, I think there would have been a lot of torque on that.
The two concerns I still have are the screws holding in the T-track. I had the same issue where they just want to poke out the back. So we need to come up with a solution for that. And then the other thing that I don't love is the chipboard. I just think it's a little cheap.
Okay, well, I think I have a solution.
Well, I think we are finally there. We made some tweaks. We got rid of the chipboard. Now it's solid Baltic, which is much nicer, stronger. We fixed the screw problem with those Euro-style screws so they don't poke out the back. Genius solution, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
This thing fits right over your table saw fence. It's all built to fit on your fence, so it's universal. It'll fit any table saw fence. Slides really nice. I cannot wait to show you what this does. And the cool thing is, we got the assembly time with the detailed instructions, 30 minutes or less, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think put it all together.
Yeah, and I think we have a good order of operations that ensures you're going to get perfectly square, if not, you know, absolutely amazing in a very short amount of time.
So Jonathan's going to go figure out the production side of things and figure out how we're going to mass produce this and get it out to you. And while he does that, I'm going to walk you through everything, well, a lot of the things that you can actually do with this, because it's more than you think. And I'm sure you're going to come up with your own uses for it as well.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I'm pretty excited, and I don't need to be talking anymore.
No, get out of here. I'm
Yeah.
going to do this thing.
Let's go do it.
Do what you
Sorry.
do best, all right? I'll do what I do best, which is
All right.
woodworking, and I do it a lot better than you.
God.
So.
Yeah.
So one of the coolest features that we added to this jig, originally I designed it just to do raised panels, is the L fence. Now if you've never used an L fence before on your table saw, I'm about to blow your mind because it's going to be your new favorite thing for making simple, accurate cuts. So the way the L fence works is it attaches like this. It's called an L fence because it's kind of L-shaped. And this is essentially acting as a guide that allows you to duplicate the straight line, which this is your reference surface, onto any piece that you want. So let's say you have a piece of wood that doesn't have a joined edge and you want to put a perfectly straight line on it. Well, you need a template board like this. This one's not long enough, but essentially you would use some double stick tape, stick this board on here. Now this board is going to ride along your reference surface, which is your L fence, so that you can push the board through the table saw. When you set this up, you're going to slide it over and make sure that this edge is perfectly in line with your blade. Lock that down. Then when you run a piece of wood along that L fence as the reference surface, it's going to transfer that perfectly straight line onto your piece that you're cutting. And the really cool thing is, you can use this to cut complex angles. So instead of just doing a straight line across a board, let's say that you need a very specific angle. Well, you draw a line with a pencil, whatever angle you want, and then all you have to do is match your reference template board to that angle, and now it becomes a tapering jig. It can really cut out whatever angle you want. You can almost use this like a template for template routing something. If you have a square piece that's kind of an odd shape, you can just transfer that template board around on your lines, cut out all those weird angles with the use of the L fence. But if you're in a shop that doesn't have a joiner and you need a way to get a perfectly straight edge on a board, even a longer one like this. This is a piece of zebra wood we're going to be using to make a box. You just need a long straight edge, stick that on there with double stick tape, and then you can run the entire piece through your table saw along that L fence, getting a perfectly jointed edge on one side, and then all you have to do is run it through the table saw, and you have a perfect parallel straight lines on both sides, which is pretty cool.
When you're setting up your L fence, the first thing you want to do is make sure that the outside of the table saw blade is perfectly in line with the edge of your L fence, so you get a nice accurate cut. Now I found this piece of zebra wood laying around Jonathan's shop, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to make something to show all the uses of this jig, and a little decorative box just seemed like the perfect project. Now, Jonathan does have a joiner, but I wanted to show how you can use the L fence essentially as a joiner. So I slapped a straight edge on there with a piece of double-sided tape, ran it quickly through the L fence, and boom, just like that, perfectly straight edge. Then with one edge perfectly straight, all you have to do is run it through the table saw using the table saw fence as your guide, and now you have a perfectly joined board on both sides.
Another really cool thing about the L fence is it allows you to cut 45-degree angles on the left side of the blade. If you've ever tried to cut a 45-degree angle on the table saw, it can be difficult because, well, you're working on the right side of the blade, and so you have a big piece of wood that you're trying to get that angle on, and it's really hard to get an accurate 45-degree cut. With the L fence, what you can do is you can cut on the left side of the blade, so the amount of waste that's coming off is to the right of the blade. It's a lot safer. You're not going to get burn marks on your 45, and you can get a nice straight reference surface that's riding along that L fence to ensure that your 45-degree cut is perfect. So we're going to try and make this little jewelry box, decorative box, and I thought, you know, we might as well use the L fence to cut all of our 45s. With something this small, would it be easier to do it on the miter saw? Probably, but just remember that this works for bigger pieces too. If you're doing a waterfall table or a bigger box for a nightstand or a side table, this is a really good way to do it.
L fences have been around for a long time, but the first time I saw one used was actually by my good buddy Keith Johnson. He built one for his table saw and used it this exact same way to cut miters. Now, the miters he was cutting were a lot beefier because he was building some gigantic piece of furniture, but it works essentially the exact same way. All you need is a straight edge as a guide. I cut a piece that was big enough to be the exact same width as my piece, so it was really easy to square up on the top surface. Then you just run that straight edge along the edge of your L fence and you can cut a crisp, clean miter every time. And if you notice, I'm not getting the normal burn marks that you would by running a miter on the right side of the blade, because there's no tension in between the blade and the table saw fence, which also makes it really safe to cut pieces of wood like this.
So, just like that, quick and easy, we cut all 4 sides of our box. The L fence made it super simple. The nice thing about the L fence and cutting 45s like that is that because you're on the left side of the blade and all the waste is on the right underneath the L fence, there's no real tension that you can get against the blade. So the chance of kickback is almost zero. So it's a super safe way to make those 45 cuts. And you can do obviously bigger pieces than this. I mean, with small pieces like this, it'd probably be easier to do it on the miter saw. I'm just trying to build something to show you how it functions. Now that we have all 4 of our pieces cut for our little box here, I'm going to show you something else this does. I thought it'd be cool on the top of the box to do a raised panel. So I'm going to set this up to cut a raised panel and show you how easy that is.
So I quickly removed the L fence attachment and then I grabbed this arm. Now the arm is essentially for cutting mortise and tenons or angled bridle joints, but it also works really good as a stop when you're cutting raised panels. I hooked that on the very side of the jig, and then using these hold down clamps, I held my panel in place, and then I just set the table saw to an arbitrary angle. Really, with raised panels, whatever you think looks good is fine. You just want to make sure that where it comes to a point at the edge, it's the proper thickness you need it to be to slide in your dado slot if you're doing a traditional locked in place raised panel. With 4 quick passes, I had this beautiful curly maple raised panel for the top of our decorative box. Then I took all of my mitered pieces, I added a dado on the top and bottom. I cut another little panel of walnut just from some scraps I found laying around the shop, stuck that in the bottom, the raised panel in the top, squirted a little bit of glue in all of those joints, easy peasy, glue goes squeezy, added some blue tape to all my seams, and wrapped the entire thing together. And just like that, we have created a box that nobody can get inside of. We'll figure that out later.
All right, I cut that nice raised panel for the top of the box. I cut an additional panel for the bottom. We got this thing all glued up. They're mitered joints. They're just glued right now. So we're gonna add some splines. And the great thing about this jig right here is it also comes with these spline jig attachments, which is awesome because you can put the box right in here. You can cut your spline. So you can take your box, picture frame, whatever. You get this at a nice 45 with the corner hanging down on the blade, and then you can zip zap zoop that thing and cut splines on all your corners. So that's what I'm gonna do now, and we'll see how this works.
I have always loved miter joints with splines in them. It probably goes back to when we did an actual joint test on a bunch of different types of joints to determine which one was the strongest. And believe it or not, the miter with splines was the strongest joint out of all the joints we tested. And the thing that's really nice about this joint is anybody can do it. You just cut 2 mitered pieces, glue them together, and then with a spline jig like this one, you cut some grooves, add in some splines, and you have created a rock solid joint that looks fantastic and is incredibly easy to reproduce over and over again, especially with this jig setup.
So we have all of our splines inserted here. The spline jig worked perfect. Those were nice and tight, got them in all four corners. Now normally I would just chop these off with a flush trim pole saw, but then I was thinking we got the L fence on the jig. I might as well set this up just to flush trim all these splines that way. Should be really quick and look pretty darn cool. Let's see if it works.
I mentioned that I would typically use a flush trim saw to cut all these splines, and that's what I've always done in the past. At first I was like, this is a little ridiculous using the L fence to cut all these, but it was so quick and easy and honestly gave a nicer finish than when I've done it in the past with a pole saw, so I'll probably just switch to this in the future. With all of my splines flush trimmed, I ran the entire box through the table saw on all four sides, separating my lid from the rest of the box, and then I had to come up with some solution to hold the lid in place. Now normally you would add kind of a border of wood on the inside bottom portion of the box. That's the preferred, nicer looking method, but I was in a hurry, so I just grabbed a scrap piece of walnut, glued it in the top, and that worked just fine. Honestly, it made the lid nice and heavy too, which I actually really liked. I'm gonna give this box to Jonathan, a peace offering for messing up his shop.
Well, there you have it. I made a box. It might not be the most beautiful box you've ever seen, but then again, I'm in Jonathan's shop and it's set up more for woodworking demolition derby than actual real woodworking. But that's neither here. Hey, I'm in the middle of filming.
I know. My shop is set up amazing.
Okay, sorry.
I like a lot of great furniture here.
My point is, it's just harder to do things when you're not in your own shop. But I built a box, and I think I just showed a handful of the ways that you can use this jig because there are so many different ways. Get creative. It's pretty cool. One of the main functions of this jig that I didn't even touch on is the fact that it has an arm that allows you to do mortise and tenons, angled mortise and tenons, angled bridle joints. I actually showed how to do that in the original video where I first built the jig. We'll cut to a little clip of that right here.
Sides you can cut on the outside and not cut too close to your jig, marring your jig and, well, setting off your saw stop if you hit that aluminum. Just like that. I mean, this took me less than 2 minutes to cut both of these. I have a nice, perfectly fitting bridle joint. I glued it together and I sanded it, and it looked something like this.
Another really cool function of this jig is that you can actually take this whole front piece off like this, pop these bolts out, and then it's gonna come with an extra piece of T-track just like this. Now, what you can do is stick this through there on the back and this one through there, and then if you put this T-track on like that, you can plop this down here into your miter gauge. Lock those down there, and now you have a simple crosscut sled. This is super handy if you want to cut something at a weird angle. You still have all the T-track that you can lock it down. You can take your L fence that's included, use the bolts that are on there to hold the L fence up here. You can put the L fence down here as a guide if you wanted to do dados or half laps. So the versatility of this jig is as, limited as your own imagination. I'm sure you guys will find a ton of other ways to use this that we haven't even thought of. I'm so excited to get this out there into the world and have you guys start using it. So check the link in the video description. They're up on my website. They're over on Jonathan's website, kmtools.com or bourbonmoth.com. Check them out and let us know what you guys think. Also, tag us when you're using it, and then we can throw up how you're using the sled on our social media. That's all I got. Now I got to get on a plane and fly home. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Now, Squarespace is just the best company on planet Earth because they take people like me who are not web designers and make it incredibly easy to create a professional looking website, and I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. You just get on squarespace.com, you pick out a template that best fits the kind of website you're trying to make, and then you customize it for all your business information. And because it's customizable, if the template's not perfect to start out with, it's okay, you can make it perfect. Now, when we launched this universal table saw jig, I wanted to create a product listing on my website. They make it super easy to do that. You just add your pictures, you add all the information, you set a price, and you click boop, and it's on your website. The other really cool thing is when I had this idea for the jig like a year ago, I put a listing up temporarily. It wasn't available for purchase, but Squarespace allows people to sign up to be notified when the product goes live. So for the last year, we've been collecting email addresses on the website, and then when we launched the product, we emailed out over 1,600 emails to potential customers, which is pretty awesome. Now, as I have these ideas for new products, I might be limited on other website platforms on how many products I can list, but not on Squarespace. Unlimited products, which is pretty darn cool. Custom domain names, cool stuff with AI. I mean, they're just doing their best work over there. So if you want to check it out, go to squarespace.com/BourbonMothWoodworking and use the coupon code BourbonMothWoodworking at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. You can click the link down in the video description or just follow that one on the screen. Pretty darn cool. And make sure you stop by my website and check out our new listing that we created on Squarespace and get yourself a universal table saw jig, which is right here.